Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool arcade game repair video this evening. Look what we have here. The wonderful, the fantastic, the legendary Williams Joust arcade machine. We had a customer bring us this. He wants us to repair it for him. It's in pretty nice original shape. And I believe, I hate to even say this, but I believe it's going to be for sale. So if anybody's looking to buy one, we might have a lead on this really nice Joust arcade game for you. If you see this video within a month or so of it being uploaded. I'm sure it'll be gone by then, though. So this is one that he picked up locally here in the Rock Hill, Fort Mill, Charlotte area that appears to have original side art. I think it's been touched up, though, but original painted side art. It's got the original control panel overlay that has some burn marks on it, but someone has repainted some of the artwork and did a pretty good job of it. A little wear. This is the type of thing, there is no way I would replace that. But it does have some wear and stuff, you know, so I could see where somebody might. It's cracked here. Been repainted there. It almost, with those burn marks, it's almost got to be original because, you know, people stopped smoking cigarettes at the arcade a long time ago. Think how old school you'd have to be to buy an expensive Joust arcade game like 5 years ago and still smoke your cigarette and lay it on the control panel like you did back in the 80s. It probably isn't a thing. Those must have happened back in antiquity. It appears to be the original marquee, and it says Williams Electronics Joust, copyright 1982. What a cool game. Now it looks like on the bezel here there's a little wear where the paint's flaking off a little bit. That's pretty common. A little more over here. But very nice shape, really, for an original setup. And it's got the little copyright or registered sticker. So if you don't know about that, when they painted these, they sprayed the paint on. So there's overspray. They use stencils to spray it on at the factory. So because of that, they couldn't do like really serious detail. So they just put a little sticker on there with the registered logo on it because it's so small. They wanted to make sure they got it right. Yeah, this thing's in pretty nice shape. I'm impressed. Appears to be the original back door. So the problem with it appears to be some kind of board issue. I'm thinking maybe some RAM, maybe a RAM problem. What do you think about that? So let me open up the back door with the keys, and then we'll get a look at the inside of it and make sure nothing got knocked out of place or something before we mess with it. So these had a really nice setup where the back door comes right off, and then the bottom door is held in place by a couple latches here on the side so you can reach in and open that. So you can take just that door off if you want to mess with the monitor, and if you need to get down to the board and the power supply, you can swing that out. So the monitor is a Hanorex. Interesting. I didn't even know that they put Hanorex in any of the Williams, but that kind of looks original. I never would have guessed that. There's a Williams, couple Williams stickers on the frame, so the frame is original, and that sure looks like that's a Hanorex frame. Wow. I'm gonna have to do a little research on that. Wasn't sure that was a thing. But yeah, sure enough, there is a Williams sticker on there. I wonder if that matches any of the other stuff. Okay, one 3387 something or the other. One 3387 something or the other. That's the soundboard. Pretty interesting. I don't know if these boards would have anything like that or not. Pretty wild. Okay, so the power supply has been replaced though. So this is the transformer that runs, the AC voltages. So you've got the line filter, a fuse, a service outlet so you can plug in your soldering iron when you're fixing these suckers. A voltage jumper, depending on if it's being used in the United States or Europe or whatever. And then some of this transformer, the reason this is still in here but the power supply is not, is because some of this transformer is running the AC for the monitor. And it needs an isolation transformer for that to work. So the isolation transformer is built into this big transformer. So originally part of the windings would run the monitor and the other part of the winding would power a power supply board that would have been mounted over here. Now you can see what happened. At some point, too much heat was running through the connector and burn up that pin. And then the power supply probably stopped. So it was really common years back to, instead of rebuilding the power supply, replacing this connector, repinning it, all of that, that they would just put in a switching power supply, this was called, which is, it's more like a box power supply actually, but everybody refers to them as a switcher because it's not a linear supply like the original one that was in there. Now sometimes some of the games actually did have a switching power supply in it that someone would replace with this box power supply and then say, I installed a switcher, but it already had a switcher. But this particular one, it was linear originally, I believe. Unless I just completely don't understand how linear power supplies work. So what they've done is they've gotten the power, the AC power, to run it off of the leads going to the monitor. And that's pretty common. I've seen people do that before. Up until, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, it was really common that people wouldn't rebuild that original power supply. They would consider this an upgrade. It's kind of went back the other way now, where a lot of people, since people have learned how to repair those original power supplies, people will fix the original one a lot of times now. The reason they would update to this back in the day is because it's real easy to get these as a replacement. And the linear power supply, one, you would really have to kind of understand how power supplies work to know how to fix it. It's pretty easy, actually, if you look at the schematics, but a lot of home collectors and stuff maybe weren't all that great with that. But you could look at those same schematics and figure out where the power voltages went and just wire one of these in. And then if this thing ever goes bad, you can take it out and put another one in it. They still make these brand new. So it was just considered, it was easier to replace it with the switcher than to keep working on that linear one. The linear one might be more reliable, actually, though, if you took the time to repair it. But that's what it's got in it. This is the soundboard, like I mentioned, and that's the volume pot that connects to the soundboard. And then this is interesting. I haven't actually seen this, but this is a board set, but it has like a piggyback board on it. I didn't even realize that they did that. But that's pretty clearly factory. I've had Joust before, and mine I don't believe was like that. So we're going to have to do a little... We'll have to do a little checking that out. So this is the ROM board. It's kind of hard to see because it's covered right now, but that's the ROM board. This is the CPU board. And then this is what's called the widget board. It's like the in and out board for the controls. All of these are wiring to the control panel. So I don't know what this would be for. Huh. I have never seen that. It's some kind of expansion board for something. But the way it's mounted, I think it's pretty clear that that's original. We'll see. Maybe it's some kind of weird Well, I don't know. It's got to be original because it's the same vintage. But I've just never seen a Williams board that actually uses that. Now the original CPU board had these decoder chips, they called them, and I can see that they're both present down there. So whatever that's for, I guess we'll find out, right? Okay, so everything looks pretty good inside the cabinet. I'm gonna go ahead and plug it up, and we'll turn it on and just see what happens. One interesting thing about these is it says remove bolts and slide monitor back to view mirror during adjustments. Disconnect 2 cables and use caution when removing the monitor. So this board will slide back, and then there is a mirror right there that will reflect the front of the monitor, and you can use it to do things like adjust size and colors. So we're going to pull this out. This is a safety interlock. And sometimes there's one on the front. I don't think that actually is. That's like a service thing. Okay, and now we'll hit the switch. See what happens. Looks pretty good. Rug pattern. It looks off though. It's not quite right. Yep. Okay, initial tests indicate RAM error 11. It's kind of hard to read it. Let me turn off the lights so you can read that a little better. Oh, wow. Okay, we're going to do it again just so we can see it in the light. I mean, with the lights on. I mean, the lights off. All right, yeah, so this is called the rug pattern. It's a little off. It looks like it's doubled up, which you can tell whenever the lettering comes on. So maybe initial tests indicate RAM error, and that looks like it says 22, which is different than what we saw earlier. I think earlier it said 11 or something like that. It may be saying ROM error, but when things are doubled, I think that's usually RAM. And I think this says bookkeeping reset, maybe. Factory settings restored. I can't remember what the top one usually says. So we may have to... Maybe it wants us to open the door and then hit a button. I can't remember. There we go. So this should say credit 0. Obviously everything's kind of doubled up. Interesting. Let's see the flappers. Wow. Wow, that's crazy. I've never seen one quite do that. It's like if it was on the 2600. We'll have to pull out the 2600 one to see if it looks better than that. Yeah, okay. Welcome to Joust. Repeatedly press flap. Okay, so we get the idea, and it reset. Let's see if it tells us a similar thing. RAM error 22 or 20, something like that. All right, so the next thing we want to do is look at the actual game board. So on the ROM board on Joust, there is a little LED, and it's sideways, I believe. So I think that's a U. So we're going to turn it off and back on. And watch that. 1, 2, 6. 1, 2, 6. I think the top of the LED is burnt out. Looked like 1, 2, 6 to me. What do you think? Let's try it one more time. One, 2, 6. 1, 2, 6. Yep. All right, so I believe that is a RAM error code. But before we mess with that, I'm going to make sure that the power supply is outputting anywhere near the correct voltage. It could just be that the power supply is low, and instead of giving the board 5 volts, it's giving the board like 4.7 volts. Whenever the voltage is low, one of the first things that really doesn't like that are the RAM chips. On this board, they haven't been updated yet, so they're still the original 4116 RAM chips, and there is a huge bank of them here. So if I'm correct about that, the 1 means it's a RAM error, the 2 means it's bank 2, and the 6 means it's the 6th RAM. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So maybe there's 8. Yeah, I think there's 8 in each row. So it would be that chip. that would be my guess. But we need to check the power first. So I'm going to get the multimeter, and we'll see what that tells us. Okay, so a good place to test the power supply voltages is actually on these RAM chips. So these are 4116 RAMs, and the way they work is the 4 pins on the corner of the RAM. So the first pin, the 8th pin, the 9th pin, and the 16th pin are 3 different voltages and a ground. I can't ever remember which one's a ground, but you can cheat and use the screws. So I'll show you how to check that and how to tell if your voltages are correct. So this thing runs off of 5 volts, negative 5 volts, and 12 volts. So there's also, I think there's a negative 12 volts that the soundboard uses. But it doesn't have to be negative 12, so you can run it off negative 5, which is how they're making it work with this switching power supply. I haven't worked on one of these in a long time. It's kind of cool to mess with one of these again. This is more of the stuff that we used to mess with a lot more. Back when we first started messing with these, we didn't really do that much with pinballs. Okay, so I'm going to turn it back on. I've got my meter set on DC voltage, and I'm just going to use my ground lead on one of these screws on the edge because that is a ground. Okay. And then we're going to pick one of these RAM, and we'll just test each corner pin. So if I go to pin 1, I've got negative 5.1 volts. So that's the negative 5. So it's a little high, but it's not important. The only one that has to be regulated where it's pretty dead on is the 5 volt. So the negative 5 is present on the board. And then there's the 12 volt. And so 12.55. Same story. It doesn't have to be perfect. And then I'll bet this one's the actual 5. Oop. Yes. So 5.155. That's actually a little high. And then this one here is the ground. Okay, so it's at 5.155. That's a little high. Is that high enough to make the RAM start screwing up? I doubt it, but let me get a little screwdriver. Let me see if I can turn it down just slightly. All right, so I've adjusted it a little bit. I've got it to about 5.1. You don't want to go too much higher than that. The 5.18 or whatever it was, it's not the end of the world, but you're nowhere near 5, you know what I mean? So why would you want it above 5 at all? It's because if there's some kind of power fluctuation or if there's resistance in the connectors and things like that, you want it to, whenever you test it on the board, you want it to give you a 5. If it's a little more than that, that's cool too. Sometimes you'll run into a game where it prefers 4.9 or something like that, but I try to keep it around 5.1 if I can. Just so that it's a little high, but not crazy high, right? Which will take care of any place where you might lose a little bit of juice here and there. Another thing you want to do after you do that, though, is you want to check over on the actual power supply. So let me check that and see if we just scared the hell out of all of us. Okay, yeah. So see, on the power supply, it's 5.25. And on the board, it's 5.1. So where's the other 0.15 volts going? You're losing it in the connectors and things like that. You also may be losing it in the ground connection to the ground plane. So it's, you know, at the power supply, if you had it set at 5.1, you would only be getting like 4.95 on the board. So it's a little bit of a, the more you clean the connectors and solder the connectors where they're making a good connection, work on the connectors to the power supply, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The more you do of that, the closer those numbers will be. But we're at 5.1, and I don't believe that that's going to change anything on the screen. Let me look and see if we've got anything different. All right, so here's the manual. It says RAM. 1 means RAM error. ROM board LEDs identify the chips. The bank number first, then chip number in the bank. See figure 3. It said see figure 3, but this is figure 4. It says number 4, figure 4. A little bit of a misnumbered, misidentified figure there. Okay, so yeah, it's the second bank. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, obviously. So it was saying 126. After I adjusted the voltage, though, it said 124. So it might be a couple of them. And it actually says, note, with multiple RAM failures, this display may not appear, the one on the main thing. Check for normal, so it says remedy. Check for normal voltages on the indicated RAM chip. -5 volts should be on pin 1, +12 should be on pin 8, +5 should be on pin 9. Turn the power off, replace the suspected chip. With multiple RAM failures, always check the power supply. See power up test. So we've kind of done that. So the next thing we can do is maybe swap one of those chips and see if anything changes. What do you think about that? Okay, so I have some other replacement ones. And so we'll turn it on, see what number it's giving me, and then we'll replace that one and turn it right back on and see if it does anything. Well, if I could reach the power switch. 1, 1, 1. Yeah, see, it's giving us a different one each time. That's not good. 1, 1, 1. Isn't that kind of what it said before, though? Maybe I'm wrong. So here is that chip. It's not in the greatest shape, and it was kind of stuck in the socket. So it could just be that the chips need cleaned and that they're not actually bad. So I'll try cleaning it and putting it back in, and we'll see if we get the same number. Okay, so I cleaned it, put it back in, same thing, 1, 1, 1. Swapped another one in, same thing, 1, 1, 1. But then I was thinking, I'm trying to remember things from 20 years ago whenever everybody was figuring out everything about these Williams boards. When it fails, whenever it checks the banks, it actually checks the third bank first, because I remember that if it said 131, sometimes it would say that because you had a voltage missing. And the 31st chip is the first one that it checked, this first chip up here on the third row. So what I've done is, since it kept failing the 111, I just removed the very first chip, 131. And now it fails 131. So it'll be interesting to see what the screen looks like with that out. Rug pattern looks about the same. Okay, so yeah, you can see that gives us a completely different looking error. So apparently it is actually checking them, and it's not failing just the first one. So by removing the first one, then you really get it to fail. So let me see what I can figure out. Why is it not repairing it whenever I change 111? Maybe it's misreading it, or maybe sometimes a couple of them are paired together and it can be one of the other ones. So I'm going to keep tinkering with it and we'll see what happens. Okay, folks, so we're going to go deep into the schematics here and do some theory stuff. Just trying to decipher what's going on with this thing. So first of all, the reason it's got that extra board on the main board is because it's a prototype board set, which doesn't necessarily mean that it's really rare. It just means that it was the first board set that they made for Joust. And the difference between the prototype board set, or the difference between Joust and the games that Williams had made before then, you got to remember, Williams only made like 6 or 7 games, something like that, was they came up with these special chips that they put on the ROM board for Joust. And I think it's also on Robotron. I don't think it's on Stargate, but maybe. I don't know. Joust and Robotron, I believe. So it has these things they call special chips, and they say that that's a blitter chip. It handles some kind of blitter thing. I don't know. Now, remember, keep in mind, I am not an expert on this Williams stuff. So this is a layman's explanation. I'm just trying to lay it out for you so that you can understand it. If you're an engineer, you'll understand it a lot better than me. So these special chips were added in, and it creates this blitter thing that they can do, that they need for this game. And it does things like it helps with the way that the graphics look on the screen. So that's all we really need to know. Okay, so those special chips are what's on that, or basically that big board is a logic-based, or I guess they're all logic-based, but it's a more discrete version of the special chips. They just made it on a big PCB. And it replaces these. It's kind of the other way around. These replaced that board. So they designed that board. It runs the blitter thing. The game works, and then they were able to create a chip that does what several of those chips do on that board, which I guess got cost down. They redesigned the ROM board and put it right there, and wham, bam, there you go. So most of the Joust board sets have these special chips on the ROM board. Ours does not, because it has that prototype board. Okay, so because I'm reading around online, people are saying that if you've got a bad special chip, that could cause that problem. We also have the situation where we have two ROM cables because of that board. So the ROM board, this cable, connects to the prototype board. That prototype board creates the special chips, and then a ribbon cable comes off of it over to the main board. It's kind of like an in-between of the ROM board and the main board, which is the same thing that's happening here. It's just they designed it a little better later. Okay, so other people have reported that they get problems with RAM errors that don't exist with the special chip being screwed up. And so they swap those out. Well, we can't swap those out because it's a prototype board and there's not even any schematics floating around for it. So if that board's screwed up, we're going to have some issues. So how can we test it? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just remove the ribbon cable going to the special chip board, the prototype board, and just plug it straight into the PCB. So basically try to run the game without the special chips, without the blitter function, and let's just see what it does. It may give us a hint. So you can't really see it, but I've got the blitter board unplugged, and I've got the ROM board just plugged straight in without two special chips and without the prototype board. Let's see if it... So it's still giving us the RAM error, 131. We're getting the same exact rug pattern, where it looks kind of doubled. We don't get any text, so I guess that's needed for the text. Let's see if we can get any kind of gameplay at all. Remember, the thing was booting and halfway playing. But I don't know how much of the graphics are created by those special chips. And the blitter function. So remember, it came up to that screen and said all tests go, or whatever, everything's ready. Well, after it threw the error. This little graphic stuff on the side, that's just a artifacting thing that all of these Williams games. All right, check that out. Okay, so it's still screwed up without the chips installed. So that tells me that the doubled graphics have nothing to do with the blitter thing, because they're doubled up even with those completely disconnected. Unless the Joust logo can't display without those blitter chips, but I don't see how that would be possible. It looks to me like it's still screwed up. So whatever our issue is, I don't think has anything to do with that prototype board. So I think we can rule that out. And the rug pattern screwed up. That rug pattern happens on every one of these Williams games, and it looks exactly the same because it's literally just something that the RAM is creating. and the RAM is on the main PCB. So I think we've got a problem on the main board. I don't think it has anything to do with the ROM board. It could still be the ribbon cable from the ROM board to the prototype board, because it's still plugged in from the ROM board to the main board. But you'd think if it was that, you'd get something a little different every time you did it, because one of the wires would be flexing and bending and breaking and all, you know, but it's exactly the same every time. Okay, folks, so I'm still poking around trying to figure out what's weird. On the image being doubled, that could have something to do with this video address bus. The video address bus also is involved with accessing the RAM. So when it's doing the RAM test, that could be giving us issues with that. So there's a section of the main board with these 9316 counters on it. These counters are problematic in like any board that they're on. Now they need to be there, and most of them are fine, but if you have a problem, it's usually a counter, or a lot of times it's a counter, I should say. So that's what these are. So the way these things work, and I'm not an expert, this is the layman's terms, these are actually the inputs here, and they're all tied to voltage. Okay, these are the outputs. And then you've got enable lines and clock lines and stuff like that that basically control these outputs. But whenever you have like so it's an address bus, you've got all these different address lines. So there's a whole row of them. So we've got 13, 12, 11, 10 out of 5C. And then 5D, we've got 9, 8, 7, and 6. And this is where these are created from, you know. So these two are tied high, and these two are tied low, but it's creating these lines, right? And then you get down here to 5E, and you have 5, 4, 3, 2. These are all tied low. And then you have 1 and 0, and then this line, I think, does like the memory protect or something. What does it do? No, it feeds, it's the clock line for 6C, which has something to do with the sync, I think. And then 14 isn't used. So these counters, this is a really common design in these games. I don't completely understand it, obviously, but all that you really need to know is they have an input that's tied to ground or tied to high in this instance. And then you have these are outputs, and you should see action on these outputs. So I'm getting a weird signal on VA0 here. So I'm gonna go back and show you what I'm getting. So 5C, 5D, 5E, 5F, we're looking at pins 11, 12, 13, and 14. So on the main board here, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is C, D, E, and F. So we're looking at, it's kind of hard to do this with one hand while I'm holding the camera. I could get the tripod, but what fun is that? So this is pin 11, 12, 13, 14. And you hear how each one of those sounds different? That's because it's, you know, they're counters, so each one's going to be like twice what the one before it is, or something like that. So you end up with different frequencies. Okay. So that, and I don't know if the camera shows it good, but it's green and red, which just means it's pulsing. So all of those, you see the signals, right? So when we get down here, 12, nothing. It's just floating. 13 is weird. 14 is weird. Sure seems to me like 5F, pin 13 is missing. Not pin 13, pin 12. 5F pin 12. So it's VA0. Pin 13 was there. Actually, pin 14's working too, but they're not using it for anything. Okay, so that's VA0. So what all is VA0 used for? Well, it shows up down here, which again is involved with creating the horizontal sync and the composite sync. We don't have a sync problem, so I don't know. Maybe it was adjusted out. Maybe it is a little off on the sync and they were able to adjust the monitor or something. Not sure. And then it shows up again down here, which is also involved in the sync. And then it disappears off the page on this video address bus line. See how they've got it cut off? Now these are the this is the decoder here, which creates the video prom address bus, but the VA0 line is not used for that. And I think that's it on this page. Let me look again. Yeah, so that's it on this page. So the next page is the page where the RAM, it shows the RAM. So down here at the bottom, I think we already looked at this. You have a video address bus here, and VA0 pops up again right here. And so it is one of the inputs. It's the 2A input, which is going to be involved with creating this signal here, MA0. So MA0, memory address 0, it's not the entire memory address 0, it's a fourth of memory address 0, is used for all of these chips at 1R, these are all RAM, 1R, 1Q, 1P, 1O, and then it pops up again at 2R, 2Q, 2P, 2O. And then it pops up again at, or actually it's used on all of them. Okay, yeah, it's used on every one of them. So again, if you're having weird RAM problems and it pops up all over the place and it says this RAM, then it says this RAM, and you replace it and it still says that RAM, and you change another one, it says this RAM. This very well could be it, you know, because it's used on all the RAM. So that's my theory, at least. What do you think? I think it's solid. I think it's solid enough that I should swap that chip. When you've got a dead line like that, where it's not doing anything, it could be that the frequency is out of the range of what your logic probe will pick up, or it could be that the input's gone. So like if the input is missing on that chip, there would be no output and it'd just be dead like that. Or it could be that the chip's bad and it's completely severed inside and there's no output. So I'm going to check the input on it just to make sure that it's grounded or whatever it said that it was supposed to be. And then if it is, we're going to go ahead and swap the chip. All right, so I swapped a new one in. Now, 9316 can be replaced with a 74161, which is the more common. You see those in everything. So let's see if we got our line back and if it changed anything. So 910, here's pin 11. Here's pin 12. Yeah, see that's back now, so 13 and then 14 isn't even used, but it's there. Yeah, so that's probably fixed it, I would think, or it's changed something, because you saw that was completely missing and now it's there, so the chip must have replaced it. So I've got the game turned on. I don't know if that's just a resistor making that one line be gone, but I guess that says 0. I've got and I did replace the power supply. Now, you may be saying, well, where's the prototype board? Well, you know, I figured out if I take that off, it'll still show some graphics. So it's just easier because you can get to the board better. So I think it's probably came up and said error, because you know it's got a coinage error. I just hit the button, maybe that's got it through it. Let's see if it brings up the title screen and if it's still jumbled. Come on, baby. Bam! Fixed it. It's one of the video counters. Well, now we know. Okay, so I'm carefully going to put the dither board, or whatever, the blitter board back on, and that should get the game back up and playing. But it sounds like we don't have any sound. Boy, I got away with words, don't I? It sure sounds like we don't have any sound. So let me put that board back on and see if we can get it to actually play, and maybe that's needed for the sound. Okay, folks, I'm going to show you what a properly working Williams rug pattern should look like. That's how it ought to look. Once you've seen that like 1,000 times, whenever you can just tell by the pattern at the beginning if it's booting up properly. If there's RAM problems and stuff, or like we had the doubled up image, that won't look right. It's just a kind of, it looks like a rug. It's just a rug pattern. And the one earlier, if you go back and looked a little bit different. So you can just tell by looking at it, it ain't quite right. Okay, so I got the prototype board, and it's got, of course, the prototype ROM board mounted back in. I replaced the batteries. You know, you can do a upgrade to put a cell battery on this, or NVRAM, or even a charging capacitor, a bunch of different ways to do it. But the customer just kind of wants to get the thing working well, and he's going to sell it. So he just wanted me to get it doing its thing. Whenever I am leaving batteries in something, the original ones, because they leak, that's the problem, long term, is I like to use these cheap freaking batteries. The thought being, they're so cheap, they don't have as much stuff in them to leak out. There's your science, folks. So we're going to do that. It had old ones in there, that's the exact same brand, actually, that hadn't leaked. Everything was cool. You know, also on these, the leaking problem isn't as bad on these because of just the nature of it. They're down on the bottom. They're by themselves on the board. There's no traces running under that per se, or pretty much. And when they do leak, what they usually do is they tear up this holder. So you just have to replace the battery holder, or go ahead and put a cell button battery in it or something like that. That appears to be the original holder, and it doesn't have any damage. So we're going to leave it like that. So we're ready to button it back up and to make sure she plays. Look how great this looks. I always thought this was such a great design. There is a little slit here in front of the bezel that allows light from the marquee to shine down in front of the monitor, which doesn't bother the monitor but lights up the control panel. How cool is that? Just what a cool design. Very, very well thought of. All right, now I'm not any good at Joust, but we'll try it. Sound does work. It just I was expecting it to do the Defender thing when it starts, and it doesn't. So if you've never played it, the whole purpose is you hit them higher than they hit you. So I was a little lower than him, so I died. Thou art dead. Ooh, I forgot about the other guy being over there. I haven't played in a while, folks. It's been screwed up, okay? I haven't been able to practice. It's been screwed up. Ooh, I was a little too low. Ooh. Got you, sucker. Got you, sucker. Got you again, sucker. Whoa. They can't hurt you once they're unmounted. Oh no. Ooh, they got me. Thy game is over. Enter your initials. Don't mind if I do. Yep. I guess that's blanking because I'm the Joust champion. But hope you saw that. It went quick. Come on, you sucker. What an idiot. sucker. Woo! You gotta be careful because the eggs will hatch. Come at me, bro. Oh, he got me with the turnaround thing. All right, that's fair. I ain't scared. I ain't never scared. Oh, a little too low. I thought I was down here. So the hand has grabbed him. Come on, sucker. You gotta hit him just right to kill the pterodactyl. Oh no, thou art dead. Come on, you sucker. Come on, you sucker. Look at these little bastards. Look at them. Look what they're doing. Oh, they got me. I fell right through. Thy game is over. Thou art deaded. All right, seems to be working good. What a cool game. Look, Joust champion #1. Boy, I'm good. All right, folks, there you go. Hope you enjoyed it. Now, if you want to see me play badly on other Williams games, there is another. I'll put the video up here. Check it out. Now, if I didn't tell you yet, we have a Patreon channel now. If you feel like supporting our channel, check down below. The link is down below. We're going to put little snippets of videos that we filmed in the past. We've got this problem where, like I just told you that I've got another Williams game that I played back in the day. I remember playing it. I don't really remember what I did on that video. So what we've been doing is going back through some of the older videos and finding little snippets, interesting things that were part of the video and putting it up. Like when I just showed you the rug pattern earlier. If I upload just that little part to Patreon in our arcade tips section, that will probably be helpful to somebody in the future if they're looking through the arcade tips and want to find that one interesting part of the video that's not me just running my mouth. It's more me showing a very specific problem and a very specific detail and how to what that means and what that does. So we're doing things like that. So we've got a bunch of videos uploaded on there. We've also got some stuff that's like behind the, not really behind the scenes, but stuff that wasn't released, like just because it's a part of a video that we didn't use, it's a repair fail, it didn't work, things like that. So, and then the last part of it is there are some videos on there that are music, jukeboxes and things like that, or even record players and stuff. that play music that YouTube wouldn't let us put on YouTube. So we've uploaded those as well. So if you want to chase out all that stuff, check out Patreon down below. But here is the other Williams game that I worked on here on YouTube. We're not going to change anything on YouTube. Everything's going to stay the same. We're going to keep putting up cool videos like this. Hope you enjoyed it. Check out this one. We'll see you on the next video.